All right, so hi, I'm Bill Beverly from Evo Electric, and I'd like to take a little bit of time to discuss how I have performed product development and how our organization at Evo Electric is working on product development. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of what it means to do product development, whether we're focusing on hardware or software, and how we bring those ideas to life.
Okay, yes, start.
Great. So a little bit about us and Evo Electric and what we're up to. We're deploying commercial electric vehicles at a fraction of time and resources than it takes to develop a brand new electric vehicle, specifically commercial trucks. We combine our offering with a turnkey data system. We have an entire ecosystem that supports fleet owners, truck drivers, truck fleet owners as well. We focus on taking the existing used trucks and we upcycle them, meaning we take them from where they're currently being driven with a diesel or a gas engine. We replace that diesel gas engine with a full electric system. And that way we can really play on the circular economy principles that are really important to us, and
Yeah,
minimize waste.
sure.
So our team is extremely, competent, and we have a lot of leadership in the vehicle level, the battery level, power electronics, and controls and integration. We are relatively young as an organization. We started in 2019, so we'll be 4 years old at the end of the year. That puts us in the seed
Okay.
stage. So, like a customer pilot level, we're working on targeting production by the end of this year. We're extremely small team, 14 people, really focused on automotive, vehicles, batteries, systems, and controls. But if you combine the experience of those 14 people, we've got over 100 years of combined and relative experience in our small team, specifically on electric vehicles and technologies. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so what I think is really important here is speak a little bit more about product development is we actually have both a hardware and software solution that we are developing. So as I talk through how we personally manage product development by managing the hardware and software, we're also living it as well. We're doing it with our own product. Um, and last couple of things. I mean, we're happy to be part of the Long Beach Accelerator program. We were part of the first cohort in spring of 2021. We're currently members of the 100 Plus Accelerator, which is a group that's established by Anheuser-Busch InBev, Grupo Modelo, uh, groups like that, as well as Unilever, and large organizations that are really trying to seek sustainability changes at the corporate level. And then also part of LACI, Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, currently in the pilot phase of their program here in Los Angeles. So that's a bit about us, Marley, and what we're up to. So
Yeah, it's so interesting, really.
I
I'm
appreciate that.
fascinated of this topic because I hadn't heard before, so it's so interesting for me. I think it. I want to know more about this. So
Yeah,
yes.
perfect. Would love to share more, and I will as I talk through some product development. We also have a Latam presence. We're based in California, but we have a office in Bogota, Colombia, and we're
Wow.
doing some of our pilots in Mexico with Grupo Modelo, like we said. So we're very interested in expanding not just from the U.S. but also into our fellow brothers and sisters in countries nearby. And I'm half Caucasian, half Mexican ethnicity, and I would love to get back to my Mexican roots as well.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's so cool.
So cool. A little bit about myself too, and why I believe I'm qualified to talk about this. I have over 18 years of working experience as an engineer.
Wow,
10 of
so
those
long.
years spent, yeah, it's been a long time. So
Yes,
uh,
yes.
it's where all my hair went, as you can tell. Um, so,
No,
so 10 years in aerospace, I worked as an intern at Boeing for a while, and Boeing really positions itself as a final solutions provider, an original equipment manufacturer. That's what OEM means. And then after doing that for a few years, I really wanted to get more detailed understanding of how to build products. So I went to what's
okay.
called a tier one, a supplier to Boeing that provides them systems. And then at that supplier called Moog, I was able to still work with top tier, OEMs across the world like Boeing and Airbus and Gulfstream and whatnot. So it
Wow.
really it really helped me get a visibility on how each one of those organizations was doing their own product development. But we had a deliverable that we have a system as Moog that we had to give them. So 10 years of that really leveled me up and got me that core experience. And then after 10 years, there's this little company that showed up in Southern California called Faraday Future that was creating a new type of Tesla, for example, a new EV in the passenger vehicle space. And they were looking for all kinds of people, all kinds of talent. I managed to get in. I managed to learn a lot about automotive and electric vehicles at the same time, but I brought my knowledge book from Moog, which is essentially, I was doing gears and transmissions and systems that were on aircraft. And of course, cars had those similar systems. So there was a lot of knowledge transfer that came. And then I was able to work with Faraday for Aston Martin Formula E. And then I went to a battery manufacturer doing lithium-ion batteries and sold batteries for 2 years at Romeo Power. Then I did one more little jump to another type of Faraday Future company called Indy EV, doing another car, an EV car. And then that was about the time where I said, hey, you know what? I've worked in a lot of places. I've learned a lot of things. It's time to start something of our own accord. And I started, with my co-founder, Jackson, who's from Bogota originally. So we really got together and said, we need to find a way to bring these technologies to LATAM and to people in California, United States that can't afford it. And so that's how Eve Electric was born.
Yeah, that's cool because you can understand other thoughts and you can spread that.
Yeah, and it's been fun. It's been, like I said, almost 4 years. And so great. So I'll jump right into it. Product development, right? What is it? It's a big title. It's a big word, big phrase.
Yes.
But the best way to...
a big process, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. The best way that I can use to describe it is, let's consider something that you do a lot, or we do a lot. If we want to go on a road trip, we want to go and relax and drive someplace, we don't just get in the car and go, right? Typically, I mean, some people might, but typically you get in the car.
Yes, but it's not so easy.
Exactly.
Yes.
So product development is similar to that, because we say, you know what, where do I want to go? Do I have the money to get there and to keep me there and enjoy it? Have I brought enough supplies? If I'm staying overnight, do I have my luggage, my clothing?
Yes.
And hopefully you avoid obstacles. You don't actually run into, road construction or issues or getting lost. And if you do that all right, then you can relax, right? At the end of the day.
Yes.
So that's product development in a nutshell. It's the journey of an idea or a concept through to mass market release. So your idea that you might have as a product, you need to plan it out. You need to make sure that you have the runway to get it done. You need to make sure you have the people and the equipment. You avoid obstacles. And at the end of the day, you release the product and hopefully you can relax, right?
Yeah. Still you have it, you can do it.
Exactly. So I like that comment because it goes right into this next one. Why do we need it, right? Well, I mean, if you're not convinced by the last slide, let's dig a little deeper, right?
No, I'm convinced, but still continue.
We need it because we need to streamline and focus our internal processes and procedures and the people and the resources, right? How do we really socialize a plan? How do we really understand what we're doing makes sense and has value, right? So what we need product development as a process because it helps us really map out how our product will give a solution to a customer, right? At the end of the day, your idea is worth nothing unless it actually meets a customer need, right?
Yes, exactly.
And what's interesting as well is it also is not a firm plan, meaning it doesn't have to be it's not unchangeable. You can change your ideas, you can adjust your ideas. It's not trying to put a process together that says you shall not change it, you can't change your mind, but rather understanding what those changes do to your plan and how they affect them. So between hardware and software companies, it's slightly different in how they approach things, because very simply, if you listen to Eric Ries, who wrote the information behind the lean startup approach, he creates the loop on the right, which is called the build, measure, learn loop, right? So traditionally, how he thinks software should be developed is you have an idea, you build it, you form a product out of it, you measure that product with the people, you get the data, you learn from how it's working, and you go back and revisit the idea, and you continuously have this circle of learning, right? That goes on.
It's like a circle.
Exactly, and in hardware, it's slightly different. You don't necessarily have the ability to go back and learn and complete that circle, because hardware takes a lot of effort up front, and then you have to make a lot of them. And if you're trying to change your mind right in the process of making a lot of them, it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to be a lot of issues, right?
Yes,
So
it's not so easy.
yeah, so hardware is rooted in something that's a bit older in methodology and thought process, which is okay, let's make sure that we understand what the customer wants, how we spell those out so we can design those things, and then how we do the work,
Yes,
and then how we check that the work's been done, and then give it to the customer. Because if we're wrong, we just lost a whole lot of money and time, and that's
yes,
something
and the
we have to consider.
customers, if you don't do it like at his, yeah, you lost it.
100%. Yeah, you lose everything. So that's why it's so strict on being able to map out your journey. So a couple of examples to bring it home here. I don't know if you have a pop socket. I feel like everybody has a pop socket on the back of their phone these days, right?
I
But
have one, but I broke up.
yeah,
It
well,
fell down and it broke.
you have to get another one. They're pretty cheap. And the nice thing about it is, what I really like is it was created by a professor, and he said, you know what, I need something to hold my phone and put it on the surface, right? Because my finger, when I hold my big phone, my finger is getting tired of holding my
Yeah.
phone. So you have what I have here. You have a clip, right, that holds your phone up, but he created a pop socket to do
Yes.
that primarily, and also to set it on your table. So if you're watching a video, you can look at it. And so that was a good idea, and it was very simple, and he didn't have to put a whole lot of process into it. He said, let's just make these things. But he got to a point where now competition came in and said, hey, we can also make those things or make them similar to those, like what I have in my case, for example. So what he did is he said, you know what would take me to the next level? And he
Yes.
realized that pop socket is real estate. It's marketing real estate. It's a small billboard, right? It's a small advertisement. And
Yes.
so he started connecting with other companies and saying, what if we could give you pop sockets and actually have your logo or your information on them? And that changed his whole business model, really, because now he wasn't so focused on the hardware, but the advertising revenue that he was getting from the hardware. And
Yes.
so by 2018, that change of philosophy using good product development processes allowed him to grow the company, and it became $200 million by 2018 for these little things that you see on the screen. It's ridiculous, right? So
Yes.
that's a good example. Now, a bad example, or a poor, I wouldn't say bad. Kodak. Kodak is still a very important company across the world. In the 80s and 90s, they had a huge market share, 90% of the market across the world. They were everywhere. They helped invent the digital camera, and then they went through market research in the 80s and said, "Hey, what do we think about the digital camera? How do we think people are going to react to it?" And the marketing firm that they talked with said, "We think people are going to love digital film, digital cameras." And Kodak
Yeah.
said, we're not so sure. We're going to keep making film. And so they chose to ignore the market feedback, which is the first no-no of product development process. Is you have to understand what your customer wants and map that out, right? So
Yes.
in the 90s and the 80s and 90s, they started getting, a lot of competition coming in that ended up
Yeah.
taking in, digital-based competitors came in and just started taking a foothold. And so because they ignored digital by about 2020 or 2012, they filed Chapter 11. They went bankrupt. They still exist today, but they're just a shell of what they were when they were, when they ruled the world back in the 80s and 90s. So,
You're in the process.
yep, yep. And this is valuable feedback for us because we don't want to be a Kodak. We want to be a pop socket, right?
Of course. I think.
So let's go through the process a bit more. So what does it mean to really go through and understand a user, and what is it? What is a user story, right? Um, if we follow what Atlassian, which is the company that produces Jira and Confluence, some of these modern tools to track software development, they define a user story as an informal, general explanation of a feature written from a customer's viewpoint. So how does a customer want to use or work with your
Yes.
idea, right? I like the visual on the top right because, for example, if you're a restaurant, you have a couple of users that you need to work with, right? You have a food critic or a customer, just say a customer. What does that food critic or customer want? Well, they want to eat food. They really don't want to pay food, but they know they have to pay for it. A lot of them really want to drink wine, right? That's something that people look forward
Yes.
to. But then you also have another user. To make your restaurant successful, you have a chef, right? You have that chef that has to cook the food and prepare the food. So these are user stories. You're mapping out what users relate to your product or your idea and how they interact with your idea, which in this case is a restaurant, right?
Yes.
So how do we further map that? Because now you're like, okay, good. I have an idea of what people want from me. How do I turn that into a product? How do I turn that restaurant into something that actually I can own and I can operate? Well, now
Yeah.
that you have user feedback, for example, if you're making a software component, you give them an interface, what's called application software. And then underneath that interface is what powers that software. So it's usually operating system, like iOS or Windows or Android or whatever it is. And then that system has to work off of some hardware. So again, back to your phone as an example, the user interface is there. The application software is on the phone. It's what we play with every day. Below that is the software that powers that application software. And then the hardware is
Yes.
actually sitting in your hand, right? So
Yes, sure.